Hey girl, I see you've come a long, long way. You're not alone anymore. Come sit with me and tell me your story. You've come a long way, girl. Pulled yourself out and cracked the mess. Those were some dark times back then, but it's all over now. You're not alone anymore. Come sit with me and tell me your story. This is Trucking with Tammy, where your journey's heard and your voice is free. You're not alone, come share your story with me.
Hi, welcome to another Thursday Triumphs and Trials on Trucking with Tammy, where we dive into the real stories of grit, growth, leadership, and wins from people making a difference in trucking. So today we've got a true connector and advocate who spent nearly 2 decades speaking up for drivers, building better cultures, and now leading community efforts at one of the industry's top tech providers. Jason Douglas is Vice President of Community Engagement at PCS Software with over 18 years in trucking, from hands on operations and recruiting to retention, leadership, and he serves on the Utah Trucking Association board and Project 61 board. Let me add that in there. He's a family man, industry voice, and now champion for carriers and brokers at PCS. He's here to share his journey, the trials he's overcome, and the triumphs that keep the industry moving forward. So, Jason, welcome to Triumphs and Trials. Thanks for joining us and for being a voice for drivers everywhere.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Tammy. It's good to
You are welcome.
connect and get on the show.
Yes. So let's start at your beginning. If you don't mind, can you take us through your journey in trucking, what got you started, and how did you go from the road to becoming such a strong advocate?
Yeah, so like a lot of people, I started in warehousing and driving locally. So I worked at a plumbing warehouse where I would deliver supplies to, job sites or plumbers' warehouses, pipe, things like that. Take like 50 water heaters and stock up their warehouse, and I started that way and then moved into the warehouse for a couple of years. After that, I went straight to a trucking company into dispatching in 2010. And the rest is just kind of history. I went from dispatching, I went over to WEX for a little bit for a program that they had there called Truckers B2B, where it taught me how to cold call. So, I sold tires to trucking companies in Missouri, Illinois, Florida, from Utah. So, if it was up to me, every young kid today would learn how to cold call. At least 2 years experience of cold calling. It will do you good. It'll aid you. I'm not very tall, but it might stunt your growth a little bit. But man, 2 years of cold calling really added another notch in my tool belt, which prepared me for a world of recruiting and drivers and safety and compliance, which ultimately led its way down to director of recruiting and retention, a safety director, vice president of operations, and then pivoting to a tech company where I'm at now. I'm still the same me and get my same kind of role, but really helping trucking companies at a larger scale, people that sat in the same seat that I did.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. A lot of pivotal shifts there, going from cold calling to recruiting to retention to tech. I mean, that's a big change. But if there's something that's going to set you up to learn how to deal with rejection, it's definitely cold calling.
100%. And door-to-door sales, things like that I've done right out in high school, to now, and cold calling, those are two of the biggest things that I think help set me up to where I'm at. As far as a skill that if I didn't have, I don't know if I'd be where I'm at.
That's a good skill. So of all those hats that you've worn, which one made you the happiest?
That's a very good question. think each one stacked upon each other, and had different things. I really liked the angle that I had when I was director of retention and recruiting. The emphasis was on retention. So at that role, we really put, the recruiting wasn't the big of issue. The trucks were mainly full, but it was really making the lives of the drivers better. So, and that company still does a good job at it today. Stokes Trucking, shout out Tremont, Utah. They're amazing. Their motto is do the right thing, and I've stolen it from them. I say it too, but it's such a good thing to have, and they were a good example to me for that. So I really like that. I got to learn, to fight and stand up for drivers and give their perspectives, and I did that in my previous role as a recruiter, but this time it was in my title of director of retention first for a reason, was to come up with those things that would keep drivers and really engage with them.
Is that where you got the nickname the Lorax when you were in retention?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of self-given, and nobody's really given me a jersey or a hat or anything
We'll
to
need to
help
get you
clarify
one
that. But yeah, the Lorax speaks for the trees. Even in my new role now, I'm continuing to stand up for drivers' wellness, drivers' mental health. In any fleets that I talk to, I will geek out and help them any way that I can, whether they're a customer or not. I'm an open book on ideas and how to make lives for drivers better.
That's good. So now that we kind of have an idea of the different hats you wore and your journey through the transportation industry, let's talk about some of your triumphs and some of your advocacy work. So at Stokes and James Clark, you really built some strong retention cultures. What were some key strategies that made the difference? Was it one or two, or was it multiple? And what were they?
I think, for good retention, one thing that I don't know if I coined it, but I say it a lot, so I'm going to say I coined it. But great retention comes from good recruiting. So if your recruiting is on point, you don't have to focus as much on retention because you're hiring the right people. So I think it starts there.
So don't lie to drivers, recruiters. That's what that means.
Yeah, I probably was one of the first to abandon the cent per mile in advertising because it got so skiwampus. It went from like 45 cents to 80 cents, and you never know who was telling the truth. They could be telling the truth, but you might only get, 1,100 miles or 1,200 miles that week.
Yeah.
If you can pay me $2 a mile, but if I'm only getting 2 miles, that's I'm only getting $4. So
yeah, one of the biggest complaints drivers have is what the recruiter tells them is one thing, and then what they find out when they go through orientation and they start the job is another thing. So there's a lot of false information provided by recruiters, or maybe not false, but maybe half truths. Like, hey, you're going to get this much, but they're not telling you what you have to do to get it.
Well, what I liked to do to make sure that I was giving a good picture and telling the truth, first I learned to dispatch in and out. I dispatched for the company. I figured out the routes. I figured out the customers, the parking, was their wait time, were they dropping hooks, all of that good stuff. Once I truly understood the routes of the job and the job that we were hiring for, then I would figure out, some of the perks and how many miles they were going to get, and was there downtime, was there detention, was there layover. Because once you figure out all of that, then you can really buckle it down. And then I like to give kind of a good, better, best. So depending on the time when someone would reach out to me, I'd go and pull pay stubs, and I'd always mix it up, and I would show a good, better, best pay stub. I'd block it out and keep it confidential, but it'd be like, this is this, and these are all real pay stubs. Call me next week. I'll get 3 different one if you want. And so I really dove into the data and let that come. And I think for the most part, I very rarely had drivers quit within 90 days, which, if they make it 90 days, it's a good indicator that they'll make it a year. And then, so I think my goal was, how do I make them stay for 90 days? And it was tell them the truth, try to make their first paycheck as big as possible, because usually they're coming from somewhere where maybe they got screwed around, or they might not even get their last check from their last carrier. The crazy things happen all the time for drivers. So tell the truth, make sure everything was advertised when they show up, no bait and switch, and then get them as big as a paycheck as you can, their first or second paycheck.
Oh, you get them a big paycheck, they're gonna love you forever.
100%.
100%. It's all about that money.
Well, it's like, you see some people, somebody will ask for some help, and I'll kind of say, hey, Kay, what you doing? Let's take a peek. Orientation is 3 days. Great. It's probably thorough. That's awesome. Some drivers like that. Make sure you're letting them know that up front. What do you pay for orientation? $50 a day. What? Would you work for $50 a day? Like, there's your problem front and center. They're going to get a week's worth of a paycheck and get $150 plus taxes taken out.
Yeah, no bueno. So you must have been doing something right, because I heard somewhere in the grapevine that you were the top 3 finalists for Recruiter of the Year.
Yes, you are correct. That was through Transport Topics at the Recruiting and Retention Conference. I believe it was 3 years ago now, 2023, 24.
That's quite the achievement.
Thank you. Yeah, it was in good company. I didn't end up winning, but just to be up there on stage and compete or celebrate and share really the best trades with some of the best in the industry was an honor for me, for sure.
I mean, honestly, you don't have to win, because being the top 3, you are a winner, right? Because if you think about how many recruiters there are out there, to be in the top 3 for Recruiter of the Year is quite an achievement.
Well, you're very kind. There's so many things that have to happen for that. So many people that have to help you along the way and give you information, and leaders that I've had in the past and leaders that I have today. I'm very blessed. The trucking industry has given me so much I could give back for the rest of my life and still not give enough. So I really am going to focus the middle to second half of my career on giving back where I can.
And that's what you've been doing. And, having a strong networking, I myself have a great group around me as well. And I think that's very important in the industry. It keeps us focused and it keeps us on track and motivated. So giving back, Project 61 and Utah Trucking Association. So let's talk about your board positions and what you're doing with those organizations. Sure. And how you're giving back.
So a few of the things that, my first involvement was through the Utah Trucking Association, where I really got to kind of give back. And 1 year at Stokes Trucking, I nominated every month I nominated drivers for Driver of the Month through the Trucking Association. And 1 year we had 11 win it and 1 winning Driver of the Year. And when that driver got handed $1,000 check, it was like a highlight of my career to watch him get that. All I did was nominate him and but recognition it was free to do that, to put him through the Trucking Association. And it was watching his wife celebrate with him and him just going, it was one of the coolest things I've witnessed. And so that I had my first love through the Utah Trucking Association, and then TCA started to come in, and I started going there and fell in love with the culture and how everybody was so pro driver. And I met people that were as passionate as I was and had the same visions. People that are some of my best friends in the industry I started meeting there. And so I wanted to give back there and I wanted to make sure I was on a committee. My good friend Tracy Rushing is on the committee for the recruiting retention side, and she's chair of that committee, so I'm on that committee as well. And then what was the third one you asked?
Project 61,
Project
the
61.
new kid on the block.
How could I forget that? I got the bracelet right there.
Do you?
So
Woo. Yeah. How
yes,
can you forget that? I'm gonna snap that thing on you.
yes. Got to remind. It's my reminder. Jeremy and Mark are good friends, and I've been blessed to know Jeremy for a long time, and we align on so many levels. And he's at a place in his career where he really gets to give back, and this is such an important mission to him. He as he's going through his own health journey and realizing how he wants to be alive and be healthy for his kids and his grandkids, he has that same passion of what he wants to pass on to drivers, and it's really admirable. And I'll be lucky if I get to do half of what he does in my career for drivers. So I really want to focus on doing as much as I can.
That's great. So is there anything that did not include as far as your advocacy work and what you're doing in the industry? Did I forget anything?
No, you're pretty good. One new thing that I'm doing, if I can do a shameless drop with PCS.
We're shameless here. Go for it.
We're shameless here? All right.
We're shameless.
Well, PCS, we're sponsoring Small Carrier University through TCA. And so, it's really the tools that the big guys have for small carriers and how to help them be successful. So we're happy to sponsor that. And I actually got to fill in and teach a class for recruiting and retention a few weeks ago. And there were 7 carriers in there. And it's such a cool program to learn and show up with your peers and network and share what's working. That's one thing that I started to realize. Nobody's afraid to share what's working in this industry.
Right. There's not a lot of gatekeepers, which is great. I love it that we all work together and share knowledge and information.
Well, because we all want the same thing. We want to stop the churn. We don't want drivers having 9 jobs in 1 year. And the ultimate goal is we want everyone to return safe to their family.
Yes. So it's a small carrier university.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to have to sidetrack for a minute, which is okay because I sidetrack a lot.
It's your name's on the show. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So, what are you offering carriers in this university? So you taught on retention and recruiting. So is there certain topics that you guys are covering in this university?
So we're just helping financially support it. I taught that time because they just had a transition in their people, and they wanted somebody that they knew who I was because I've spoken at TCA and Elizabeth Nicholson there that's in charge of this program. We have a really good relationship with. So I just filled in that way. But there's maintenance, safety maintenance, recruiting. Your paperwork, accounting. I can't remember what else is all in there. It's bad. Now that we brought it up, we pivoted to it. But really, okay. They have a section of their ongoing education, and they have a huge list of things that are available to members, and even just like a dispatching course. If you're a driver that wants to see if dispatching is for you and you're a TCA member, take the dispatching course. Find out what, I always tell people to check that out.
Yeah, I'm always saying that new carriers, small fleets, there needs to be more resources for training because there's not a lot. So seeing that TCA is putting together and has their hand in the small carrier university is awesome. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a year-long program.
That's awesome. When I had my trucks, I would have loved to have had a maintenance program because I was like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
I learned on the fly, and that's a hard way to learn.
It is a hard way and expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive. So you've had some great success in the trucking industry, but on the flip side of that, this is triumphs and trials, and you have had some of the toughest trials also. I know some of them are from a personal standpoint and some are from a career standpoint, but would you like to share those trials and how you've dealt with them and how you're overcoming them?
Yeah. It's been 5 years since I stopped drinking alcohol. I had one drink in between them, but I always tell everybody, anybody that asks for my help or anything on drinking, that is, if you are quitting and you have a relapse or a small little drink, that doesn't erase 100 days of sobriety that you had before that. It just doesn't. There's so much growth to happen there, and it's such a numbers game that people are so sad to start back over. They forget that they made it already 100 days or whatever it was that they had their relapse, and they're so hard on themselves. So, just as a young father and a young man going out in this world and trying to find myself find out who I was, we get told who we are, and we're always around our group of friends. And then finally, when we find ourselves married and with a mortgage and kids on the way and having to provide, and we haven't figured out who we are yet. And it took me a little longer than most. And the hardest part through that was probably alcoholism. I mean, I'm an addict. I will, if I start eating dill pickles, I'll be eating them by the jar by the end of the month. So I really have to be disciplined in my regimen. And I know that about me now. So I know I've learned a lot about myself. So I set myself up for little successes every day, and just by avoiding the things that I know are not good for me. But yeah.
Well, at least you have that addictive personality,
Yeah.
So many people don't have that self-realization.
It's hard to admit, because it gets a slug in your brain, and it says, I'm not addicted. I could stop at any time. And we all set up little games in our head. I'm going to go 2 weeks just to prove I'm okay. Or I'm going to go a month just to prove I can quit at any time. And I did that myself until all of a sudden I found myself not going a month anymore. And I couldn't go a week, and I couldn't go a day. And then I knew I was in trouble. And that's why you'll hear me also be a big advocate for mental health. And, I've known people that have passed away from suicide and been victim to mental illness from that. And speaking up and talking about it and getting help is out there. You're not alone, and you're not less of a man because you go to therapy. Quite the opposite. I actually find people like me more.
You're honest, brutally.
But
so many people sugarcoat it. Yeah.
Life is hard. Nothing's worse than the Sunday scaries, 9:00 on a Sunday night, and you would do anything to not go to work the next morning because you hate that and you are not happy with yourself. And, you don't have to necessarily be a bad person and have all these bad things to hate yourself. You just have to not be living up to your full potential, or things that you want to be doing, like reading or writing or exercising or whatever it may be. We're all different, but in your heart of hearts, if you're not doing those things, then life starts to kind of get heavy. And that's where we need a friend, and we need to reach out and talk about it.
Yes, I've lost a few people to suicide, 2 women drivers since I've been in the trucking industry, and someone in my personal life. And it's hard, watching somebody struggle, because it's not the weight of everybody else's opinion or expectations that bring you down as much as your own.
1,000%. One thing that you were asking me about triumphs. One of the things that I was happy to do was a post-accident therapy. Had a therapist that would take calls, and as long as if they wanted to do it Zoom, in person, or over the phone. And even if I helped one person, it was worth it. And I remember the response from one person. It was a fatal accident, not his fault, but he watched a family die in front of him. That's not easy to forget.
No,
that's not easy to process. I don't have the tools to process that. I don't have the tools to help him process that. So I was very grateful, that the company wanted to felt the same way, and we provided help for post-accident for drivers.
That had to make you feel really good, being
Absolutely.
able to do that. I mean, that is just amazing to offer and have that, provide that help for a driver.
Yeah,
So,
he was up all night Friday worrying about it, and we had a
mm,
therapist call it a full hour therapist section on Sunday for him. So um, it was pretty cool to hear him just say, I've never had anybody offer. I didn't want to take it because I just thought it was something that women did. No offense to women. That's just how truckers,
no,
But
I mean,
just
I've known, and this, it's not an offense to women, but being a woman in the trucking industry, I have seen a lot of men in situations and they take it very hard. I
they
mean, you
do.
don't have to be a woman to handle things, have a hard time dealing with things.
Well, in your position, you probably see it firsthand that men will look, nobody's looking, and they'll come like, "Hey, can you talk? I have this." Like they'll
Yeah, yeah,
confide in you, and
yeah.
so nobody needs to be a macho man about that. If it's
No.
okay to talk.
No, I agree with that 100%. So, other than alcoholism, you were also injured or had, that this year. So, you've had a lot of changes going on as well.
Yeah, that was the first kind of adversity that I hit after sobriety. I had a good 4 years where I was running every morning, waking up at 3 a.m., getting everything done, coming back, and it just was, my day was detailed, scheduled, and productive every day. And then last year, 2024, I injured my leg, and then through most of 2025, I've been off of it. So I'm just slowly kind of back and forth on that process of getting into it. Every time I kind of have introduced running, it's been too soon or too fast. So I've just backed off of it and just kind of continued to go to the gym without it. But I just met with my running coach, and about ready to start at it again.
So, I know dealing with alcoholism, it's not something that you get over. It's a daily battle for the rest of your life. You're also a family man with 4 children and a wife. You have a demanding career in the industry. What's your outlet? What's keeping you grounded since you're not able to run right now?
I'm still going to that gym, but I have an awesome team that I get to work with every day, and when work is fun, when you celebrate wins together, and you have a team that understands the assignment and they really just want to show up and win, it's a game changer. It goes from survival mode to thrive mode. And when turns into a thriving atmosphere instead of just trying to collect a paycheck, your world changes.
I imagine it does. And that kind of leads into my next question, because you had a huge career transition going to your tech community role at PCS. So, what challenges did you face with that transition? And I mean, this is what you said excites you about the job, but what excites you most about your role at PCS?
Um, So far, I'm learning every day. There's SOPs and things that happen on a tech company and the corporate side that never enter the room in a trucking building. The HR language, some of that stuff is kind of just out the window, and it's kind of the wild, wild west. So. My CEO, Mark Kill, used this example, and I won't dive all the way into it, but the opening scene of Gladiator, where the barbarians are facing the Spaniard army, and those barbarians are badass, but once they come up against the Spanish Armada, and they have shields and catapults, and they don't even hardly lose any of them. They just wipe the floor with all the barbarians because of that strategy. They're organized, they have all this stuff. So I kind of feel like I'm a barbarian turning into, I'm getting my sword and my shield and my,
He's a warrior.
I'm a warrior. I'm kind of changing strategies and being a little more methodical and strategic in my ways. And what's great is when I was hired, it was be you. You're being hired to be you. So keep being you, get out there, and we want you to be the trucking expert here. You've lived that role and you've used our product. And so continue to do that. But, with my role and my job is going to come reporting and presentations. And so I better sharpen that skill too, so that's going to be the challenge, not the challenge, but because I look forward to it, but things I'll need to get better at for sure. That corporate side of
corporate
things.
world. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what's day-to-day look like for you? What's
Well,
a normal day at PCS?
So I'm here at home in 40 miles north of Salt Lake City. You know, in my roles kind of ever changing, but I'm also over our partners. So our partner channel sales and our strategic partnerships and who we set up revenue share with and things like that. So my unique perspective of who I've used as a carrier and who does what, I have a little more tools in my belt that I can call on. So I've been over partners for about a month and a half now, 2 months. So I've been some things in the pipeline for PCS coming down the road that's going to be very cool, which I can't talk about yet, but stay tuned. It's going to be awesome. And
well, you mean you're going to be my first guest in like 3 weeks who hasn't dropped some new, bomb on my show about what's coming up in 2026?
Yeah. Excuse me. That's my month-long bronchitis.
Oh.
But and then I travel a lot. I'll probably be traveling 26 times this year, between here, Houston, and then all the shows I have signed up for. And then I love assisting our awesome sales team, just because I like to get that one-on-one with customers and go in the door and really help them understand, because I've been in that role, what we have to offer, or just understand the problems that they're facing. They might not need our service now, but they might have something that I can help them with, which is usually recruiting. I'll usually look over their ads and help them rewrite some stuff, or no, don't say that. That's driver's, that's a do not cross, do not come.
I commented on a recruiter's post on LinkedIn this week that was asking something about what are some of the reasons drivers won't make it through the first phone call with the recruiter. And I was like, the minute you tell an experienced driver that you don't have APUs, fridges, or inverters.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I learned that too. It's so crazy to me that that's not a standard now.
Yeah. It means they don't invest in their drivers. So I get that. Yeah. You, and I drove, so I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm not going to get in a truck that, because I feel like they don't care about me as a driver. So I can see there's definitely some things that you would not want to put in an ad if you want to attract attention.
Yeah. To me, I always felt that sign-on bonus was kind of a killer. Experienced drivers always told me they didn't like to see sign-on bonus because that meant that they were just bringing people that were coming for money or usually fresh into the industry. So I've done most of my career without having a sign-on bonus for that reason. I was told that young, and I kind of took that to heart. The drivers I've interacted with, that's held true. I've hired many great drivers that just want to be paid during orientation. They want to be taken care of. If they're broken down, and their truck doesn't work, get them a hotel. Don't make it seem like you're parting the Red Sea to get a driver.
And not a roach motel either.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And we're adults. We don't share rooms.
No.
And these carriers who give you roommates, I'm like, I'm a grown woman. I am not shacking up with some stranger. Sorry.
No.
That's a no-no.
You shouldn't have to. So it just, It drives me crazy, people that act like it's parting the Red Sea to get a hotel room.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah. No,
it's
I
a
get it.
it's a standard, anybody in the office would expect. So why is it different for drivers? And that's kind of always been my rule of thumb. Is it something that you would expect an office person to do? No. Well, then don't expect a driver to do it.
Yeah.
It-
And
you
home time.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, yep, exactly.
I had somebody on social media that had been out for like 4 weeks, and they were wanting to be home for the holidays, and they worked through Thanksgiving so that they could be home for Christmas. And the company did not get them home for Christmas.
Ooh,
And I thought, now that is a company that I would not want to work for. I mean, you give them weeks and weeks and weeks of your time, and they can't even get you home. I mean, I routed my drivers through the house for Father's Day weekend, and they didn't even ask me. I just was like, "Hey, it's Father's Day weekend. You're going home or going to have the opportunity to see your family. If you don't want to stop, don't. But I'm routing you this way so that you can."
it's little things like that. I had that happen to me one time in my career. A driver that same exact story, was working all the way. They said, run me as hard as you can till the 23rd, then I want to go home. And which is hard because sometimes you have to, you're taking a risk on a Texas and back or something like that. And sure enough, they got stuck in Texas with the truck broke. So, but what's $300, $400, $500 for a flight
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we ended up doing. So there's zero excuse for it. You never know what could be your last Christmas, so enjoy the one you're in.
Exactly. And drivers give a lot to companies.
So
So I
much.
think being home for a holiday like that is, and routing, we know how routing is. You can't always find loads last minute, but you can, get them maybe a day before that or 2 days before that, get them back in that direction.
Exactly.
Last minute loads obviously always fall out, but I mean, these are some great things of retention that carriers need to think about if they want to keep their drivers long term.
Yeah, getting them home is such a big deal, and usually they're pretty lenient on home time. So, I mean, if you can't make that happen for drivers, you're really missing an opportunity to make them loyal. Because if you are always just nailing their home time and getting them where they need to be at certain times, that they're really going to be loyal to you. They don't, the driver that we flew home, he never forgot that.
No.
That just added another chink. He got paid all the way up until he needed his time off, and we ended up getting him home. However we did it was irrelevant. We made it happen.
Yeah. And that's important. So what advice do you give these carriers that you work with on their recruiting and their retention?
Stop separating drivers from your company. Nothing drives me more crazy when dispatchers or the whole group, or they'll be like, they're making great money. Okay, they're making great money to who? You're capping them, they just like this, so they should just make great money and shut up. They shouldn't have an opinion. Treat their review process just like you would a dispatcher. Dispatchers need one-on-ones, so do drivers. Start making things priority. Start getting them inside the office. I've seen plenty of companies where the office snacks they're only for office employees. Sorry. No driver.
Oh, I've seen that too.
Yes.
And that is, but when it's driver appreciation week or drivers, guess who's in the driver's, office. So seems a little,
It is
backwards to me.
It is. It's crazy that people would think that, you spent $10,000 to have our most famous asset is 53 feet in the front, and it's the arrow pointing towards the driver. But God forbid they come in and get Cheetos from the counter.
I will say I worked for a company that on Valentine's Day they put single stem roses in for the drivers to come in, so you would get, a rose. And I thought that was really a small thing, but for drivers who are out on the road on a day, they felt a little love.
Yeah, which is important. Everybody needs a little love, but also
Yes.
whether there'll always be those people that complain that say, why the hell do I need a flower? Well, that's not for you then. Don't worry about it. But for the person that comes in and somebody spent a lot of time, there's one kudos to the person in that company that came up with that, because
Yeah.
they didn't listen to the noise that said drivers don't care about flowers. You know what? Who cares what you think? I'm going to give them one anyway. And it obviously
they did. Yeah.
And it made an impact to you. You're
Oh
still
yeah,
talking
years
about
later.
it.
Years
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There's a lot of drivers who just, I mean, they might not have, but you saw them take one and you might have seen them a little smile or,
uh-huh.
but yeah, I thought it was an awesome small token of appreciation.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and I think more need to do that. So, that's great advice. I've never heard anybody offer that piece of advice as far as not separating your driver from the company. That you're the first person I've ever heard with that approach. But it really makes sense because drivers are alienated from the rest of the company, and bridging that gap and making them feel more of a part.
Well, the biggest gap in the room that everyone forgets about, forget about being over the road and driving all day. Just forget about that. They're the only ones that operate on a 70-hour clock while ours is 40. So they're already alienated by 30 hours a week. Think about
working
that.
double.
Right, and that's week in, week out, and that's still driving through snow, driving through this. So just forget about, and then then you can add in being over the road. Then you can add in trucks breaking down. Then you can add in paid by the mile. I'm not paid by the podcast I do or the report that I do and stuff that are outside my control, because mileage isn't always in the driver's control. I mean, the cream usually rises to the top, but week in and week out, every driver has that bad week due to circumstances out of their control.
Right. I agree with that. So that was the advice for a carrier. What piece of advice do you give to new drivers? New drivers.
Keep your record clean. Don't hit anything. Don't drive over your hours of service. Do your pre-trips.
Do your pre-trips. Even when you think no one's watching, they are watching. I have had more than one person say, oh, I saw Tammy doing her Tammy actually does a pre-trip. Yes, Tammy actually does her pre-trip, because I don't want to be stranded on the side of the road.
Well, I've been in the office. I've seen where someone hooked up to a trailer in the office and got 10 miles down the road and the tire had a flat and they didn't. I'm like, you didn't do a pre-trip, because I seen that trailer in the yard.
No.
So that would be my advice. Don't hit anything. Be a sponge. Stay at your same job for a year. So really don't sign up willy-nilly. Find where you get your license from. Find where you're going to stay. And just commit to that job for 1 year and then decide what you want to do with driving from there. You can find local. You can find aggregate. You can find whatever. LTL. You can find yourself a partner, you can team, you can go somewhere and train, you can buy your truck, but get an accident-free year under your belt from the people who trained you, especially if they trained you for free. Show a little class, and unless it's absolutely unbearable. But too often, some of these carriers get a bad rap, but people go to their school and then leave for a better job in 2 months and just used all their time and resources to get their license. So it's a double-edged sword there. So if you want respect, you got to give it first there.
That's awesome advice. So what is on the agenda for Jason in 2026? Anything new?
Per my CPO and leader, Miss Danielle, global domination.
Global domination.
She said that
I
at
should expect
Freightways
nothing less.
She said that at Freightways last year, and it was she took everybody off guard, and it was awesome. That she was asked that question. So now it's kind of an inside office joke, and when given the opportunity, I'll say that too. But I have a busy year of travel this year. We have a cool product coming out that's really, really top of the industry. And so it's going to be excited to see our top of the industry team come through and just kick ass and take names this year.
Awesome.
So we got all the TIAs, MIAs, CIAs, TBCs, CBSs, you name it.
Got them all.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's been great talking to you, Jason. You
Likewise.
are a hoot.
Yes.
So, drivers, this is this week's episode of Triumphs and Trials with Jason Douglas. Make sure you check out PCS. Give Jason a look up. Make sure you follow him on social media. As always, stay safe out there, drivers, and we will see you next week.